Welcome to Straight from the Heart with Dr. Gary Jones.
In this episode of Straight from the Heart, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Susan Nicholas. Susan and I just met this past few weeks as she's been here helping us to get going with EPIC in our hospital. But in speaking with her further, I think her story and her journey is something that we can all benefit from, and that she has what I call her a Renaissance doctor in this time. So I want to start off with Susan. Can you share your medical career journey so far?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Jones. So I started off, actually, my very first career was in chemistry. I don't think we talked about that, but after I went to undergrad, I worked as a chemist for a pharmaceutical company before going to medical school.
Okay.
So I worked in pharmacokinetics and applied to medical school and ended up going to the University of Iowa. I did that for 4 years and then moved out to the Bay Area to train as a general surgeon, and then on to Stanford Hospital to train as a cardiothoracic surgeon. So I guess that journey seems rather, straightforward, with the exception that for the entire time I had inside of my soul like a very deep sadness that I believed would be relieved or fulfilled once I achieved certain things. So once I kind of met these milestones and advanced in my career and got to do what I really wanted to do, I thought I would be free of what burdened my own soul.
Mm-hmm.
But naturally, that didn't happen. By the time I was in my fellowship at Stanford Hospital during CT surgery, I had my moment of
Like an
soulful
awakening.
emptiness. Yes, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was the beginning of my awakening journey.
Okay. So what was it really that caused you to make such a drastic shift in your career?
Well, it was that dark night of the soul moment where I realized that I had to do something different to go on living. Like, I would describe it as an existential crisis of existence that I had reached. Like, I'd worked very hard, and it was hard to become a heart surgeon, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And um, even though I had achieved it, it didn't fulfill what was ailing my soul. I wasn't fulfilled or actualized in it. And I knew I had to do something else. And that took me to moving from the Bay Area to Atlanta, where I went to business school. I started a healthcare company. I had a baby. I had the house and the family and the Mercedes Benz in the garage. And still I was unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that if I went through that dark night of the soul again, I wouldn't make it this time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had to do something drastic.
It had to take
change.
a lot of courage to make that decision. Most of us would have just powered through.
Yeah.
Say it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And I got to get through this next step. It's going to get better. But you realized that for yourself, that wasn't going to work. And you had the courage to make that big decision.
I did, but it was I would say courage came later. I think it was out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm honest, I have to be honest with you. I had to change something, and I just didn't know what that something was.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was to fulfill me, and if something was just wrong with me,
Okay.
And so it took me on that journey. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make.
Okay.
Was to transition out.
And so what are you doing now?
So what I do now is my spiritual work. In 2012, I had a spiritual awakening where I began living outside of myself, outside of my body. And it was a time of deep sadness, deep introspection. I began having out-of-body experiences. I was woefully sad, crying at night, wishing to go home or wishing to be taken home. And one night I was given a gift, and I call it the gift of awareness, because I felt my energy leave out of myself, and for the first time I felt free. I felt free of the burdens. I felt free of the weight of it all, the sadness, the depression, the lack of fulfillment, the questions, everything. I was free of it all. And I call it the gift of awareness because I realized for the first time that our existence, my existence, our collective existence is far more than this physical reality that we create for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
that we are infinitely more than our physical bodies. And it was from there that I began my spiritual journey into what I do now.
Okay. And it's taking you somewhere where you're doing something with financial freedom. So how do you help people overcome this traumatic situation with money?
Well, what I realized, Dr. Jones, was what I was running from and what my career was disguising, if you will, was I was running away from poverty. I was running away from the institutionalized kind of mental poverty that I was born into. So I was born to a 17-year-old mom. I was her second child. My mom had a ninth grade education. My father was an entertainer, a singer. We had very few resources. There was a secret in our family, an unspeakableness about money. And that was born out of the fact that my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a prostitute who later ran her own brothel.
Hmm.
And so no one would ever talk about it. And that was the energy that I was born into. And so I didn't realize it. It's like it was something it was known but unspoken. But what I didn't realize is that I carried that energy in my own soul, the shame. There was a lot of shame surrounding money,
Mhm.
and particularly how women made money. And even though I chose to be a heart surgeon, to do something honorable, I believed, with my life and with my talents, I still carried the energy of it.
Mhm.
And I believe this is a generational thing that has occurred in my family. And so when I talk about breaking cycles of poverty, it's getting to whatever that root energy, that core belief is around value, around self worth, that I have learned to transform.
Mhm.
And I believe that's how we can finally break these cycles of poverty.
Okay. So how are you sharing those values with other people, with children? I know you've got a few books out right
Yes,
now.
that's correct. So, in my spiritual journey, I became a writer, a speaker, a podcaster, a broadcaster, all to break cycles of poverty. I created a show called the Money Consciousness Show, where I realized that many people have their own money story. We all do, because money is entangled in our everyday lives. It's in every aspect of our beingness. Effectively in this world, we've created a world that costs. So money's a part of it, even though we may not want to speak of it. Some people have religious beliefs around money. Some people think money's dirty. Some people think rich people are crooks. Some people believe they're unworthy or undeserving. Some people believe that they're entitled. I mean, there's all sorts of beliefs surrounding money. Some people think they're not trustworthy with money, or they don't handle money well. Some people believe money's not spoken of, or it's taboo. And so there's all sorts of energies and core beliefs surrounding money that we don't even realize that we're carrying them. We're just, you know, kind of believing that this is how things are, and this is something that we don't talk about. Even spouses won't talk about money with each other, parents with their children, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so for many of us, it may be a different kind of secret surrounding money than the one that I grew up with. But the idea is that once we can begin speaking about it, once we can, I always encourage to write your money story. Like, what has your journey been surrounding money, value, your own innate self worth, and how to distinguish between what is financial net worth and what is your innate self worth. So what happens, I think, is people will say, "Well, I'm poor," and a distinction that I like to make is that it is perhaps the circumstance that is lacking, but you are infinitely valuable, but you are divine in nature,
Right.
and that anything is possible.
Exactly. So we talked during the week about you now transitioning to another job with health equity and helping that to maybe help with this poverty situation. How's that going to
That's
work?
that's right. So I believe that our financial experience affects our mental health. And so what I'm doing now is I'm transitioning from clinical medicine um, into what I would say the mental, spiritual, emotional side of our health and well being. And I'm really focusing that area around money. I have worked in finance before, and now I'll be working for a financial firm where I'm from, or where I live in Atlanta, in the financial realm, they call it behavioral finance. But really, it's to build a financial practice surrounding emotional, spiritual, mental health, well-being around money, surrounding money, particularly for people that have struggled with it in the past, not just to break a cycle, but then to create wealth. Whatever that looks like for you. It's not about a number. It's not about even physical dollars and cents. I believe, Dr. Joan, that there is a continuum of wealth, and it encompasses our well-being, our health. It encompasses our ideas, our creativity, our talents, our partnerships, our collaborations, even the resource that we call our time. All of those things encompass our what is, I believe, is wealth.
Mhm.
And so for me, it's about having choices and how to break the patterns that perhaps have held you back so that you can go on to create and experience the continuum of wealth.
So in saying that, are you working with people who say are wealthy but poor in nature?
That's interesting. So people can have poverty of spirit
Mm-hmm.
and have lots of dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that's one aspect. But then there are people, I believe, that are infinitely wealthy. They're talented in whatever gifts that they were given, but they can't seem to get the money thing right, the physical part of it right.
Mm-hmm.
They can't marry those two things.
Right.
And so really it's, to me, it's being able to talk freely about money. Some people won't even speak it.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to talk freely. And what I aim to do is to create a space to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The hard conversation. Right now in our financial world, it's very transactional. It's just about debits and credits and investments and stock markets. And I've been on that side of it. I've done big equity investments. But to me, I want to bring it down to the individual, to the family, to the community, perhaps to um, uh, like associations. It could be doctors, it could be teachers, it could be groups that historically have found it difficult to break through some of these invisible barriers to create a legacy and to create wealth.
Yeah, great. So before I ask you this last question, I just want to mention that you told me your father subsequently became a very philanthropic person,
That's correct.
raised like $40 million for a hospital.
Yeah, our local
Yeah,
children's hospital.
and a very musical family. He's a producer, a singer, and now
yeah.
you think your son is maybe heading in that same direction.
That's right.
That's great.
Right.
That's great.
And I have a brother who's an actor.
Yeah, in London. Yes,
That's right.
You told me. That's right.
So I have a very, I would say, talented family in music and I would say performance arts. I was the only person that went into the medical field in my family, but I possess perhaps part of that genes, in the family, but more in a speaking way.
Okay.
I do more speaking, podcasting, broadcasting.
No singing or playing an instrument.
I can sing, but I don't do it for a living.
Okay.
My son started playing violin at 3 years old, and we play a little bit together. He doesn't play anymore, but he plays other instruments, and he's a swimmer, and has other, I would say, pursuits. But yeah, very musical and a very talented family, but still have found it difficult to break out of old patterns and cycles.
Right.
Yeah. And so my father has been a legacy fundraiser. It stemmed from his singing and performing career. He performed for big fundraisers. And then he ended up working to raise close to $40 million for our local children's hospital in West Virginia and another nonprofit for spinal cord injuries.
Excellent.
And has now wanting to do it as his own legacy. So we created an entity called OWN, the One World Nonprofit Network, which I work with my father to, again, we all have each of our pursuits. My father and us independently have pursuits to break cycles of poverty, but together we want to create a nonprofit media platform.
Good. Can you tell us how someone get access to your books?
Absolutely. Well, they're available on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. I'm Susan Nicholas, MD. You can just look for Susan Nicholas, MD books. I'm a writer of adult and children's books on human consciousness, and I write specifically for children. To look at these patterns. I believe much of what ails our soul, we can point to a time in our childhood when there was an infraction of some sort that created who we are today. And sometimes those infractions were quite traumatic and painful. Mm-hmm. What I like to remind people of is sometimes when we're adults, we feel like we can't revisit a painful time in our life, that it's just too painful. But the reminder I like to leave is that you survived it already. And sometimes if we avoid it, we never transform it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't grow from it. And I think it's those things that we overcome, that becomes what our gift back to humanity is.
Right.
So we owe it to each other, to ourselves, to kind of revisit those very painful things, and then to learn, how to transform the energy of it.
Right.
Because the things that you feel, we cannot get rid of it. We can't intoxicate ourselves from it. We can't cut it out of ourselves. We can't deny it. I mean, we can do that for only for so long, and it always comes back. And the reason is because at the very core of it, I believe, Dr. Jones, it is energy, and it follows the very first law of thermodynamics.
Mm-hmm.
That is the energy of conservation, that it cannot be created or destroyed by us, but it must be transformed.
And that situation maybe have to be faced.
Yeah, and it has to be faced to transform.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. And sometimes we need a little bit of help, and
Right.
I do that with my energy healing work. So
Okay.
I do a lot of meditations and energy healing surrounding money.
Okay.
Because many people have trauma surrounding their money history or their money story.
So we have heart surgeon, financier, book writer,
Yeah.
producer, philanthropist. That's why I've called you the Renaissance Doctor. Okay.
That's right.
So tell me, what legacy do you want to leave with us? The world, I mean.
Yes. Well, I think I spoke this earlier, that even from a very young child, I always wondered why I was here and what was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like why was I on the earth? And I was very curious about the state of humanity. And so my legacy is to leave some change, it goes back to being the change that you want to see in the world. It goes back
Gandhi.
to Gandhi, who says you must be that. So for me, it's really around transforming beliefs. I hope one day it will be remembered that even though there's something that as physical as money, that we learn to transform our beliefs around, which allows us to transform the lives that we live. And it's not just individual lives or families or communities, but really, if you think about what are the conflicts around the world, they're around resources. Mm. And if we learn how to transform our beliefs about having enough or not having, or impoverishment, people fear it. And thus they hoard resources and kill people for it. And so the idea is, if we can transform our beliefs around it, perhaps we can come into harmony when we realize that there's more than enough on this planet for us all to be here. We've all survived. This earth is provided for us and for generations before us and eons before us. And perhaps it can continue to do so. Yeah. Without us feeling like there's scarcity and lack on the planet.
Well, I'm going to say, if you can accomplish that, your time on this earth will be well worth it.
Yes, thank you.
So I want to thank you for spending this time with me today at LACVT and Straight from the Heart. This is Dr. Jones speaking with Dr. Susan Nicholas. Thank you.
Thank you.